everybody. This is Sarah Whitaker,
And Salty Dalty.
here for Working the World, episode 24. Working the audience and training them.
Mm-hmm.
And before we get into any of the good stuff, I'm going to say that we can be found on your favorite podcast platforms, and you can find us on YouTube, Working the World 0240.
Absolutely. And of course, before we go ahead and get this podcast officially started, I have an announcement that I'd like to be able to make, and those exclusively watching the video of the podcast would be able to see this, but let's go ahead and keep this as brief as I can because I believe in brevity and simplicity.
Dun da da da.
Medically cleared.
Yes, Salty.
Brevity.
Brevity.
Oh, gotta get my Clark Kent disguise on again.
Hey, I mean, it works every time, right?
Most of the time.
Alrighty. So, oh yes, jargon of the day
Jargon of the day.
is pop.
Goes the weasel. No.
Pop goes the weasel.
Only if you're Bobby Heenan.
Only if you're Bobby Heenan. And it's basically the expression of excitement from the crowd, usually cheers.
Usually from like a very low rumble to a bring
Yeah.
them to an absolute high. So that's it's like all of a sudden they pop like out of nowhere, kind of like an RKO, but
RKO.
well, Sweet Chin Music.
Sweet Chin Music did that too. Yeah.
But we want to kind of go a little bit more into not necessarily out of nowhere, but we'll get to that point in a little bit because that comes a little bit later on. But we kind of wanted to go into like more specifically North American style wrestling and how they train their audiences to kind of go along with what's going on, because it's like obviously in the last 50 or so years they've kind of gone more into the entertainment side and trying to make the audience like trained to be able to react a certain way to certain things. But anyway, I'll let you take the floor on this one.
Well, it also comes into play back in the olden days, trying to train people to cheer and boo people. I mean,
Absolutely.
Who's the face? Who's the heel? I mean, it's like
Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, Gorgeous George. We had this on a previous podcast.
Yes, I mean, it takes a lot of talent in order to get the crowd going at the same time, because it's like, especially nowadays where alignment and face and heel is a little bit on the gray side.
Yeah.
I mean, it's harder to train a cheer and a boo anymore, but back in the olden days when they thought that wrestling was real, I mean...
It's still real to me, damn it.
And it's still real to a lot of people. But, I mean, Mad Dog Vachon, I mean, I'm gonna put him in a pine box.
Oh, yeah. People believe that because that is something that's in character. Mad Dog Vachon is actually putting somebody in a pine box. Taputa. Taput, that's the word.
Yeah, and just the way they used promos and stuff like that in order to build that up previously to, like, this is who you cheer, this is who you boo.
You're talking them into the building.
You're talking them into the building.
Yeah, and kind of getting that, like, imagine that if you're turning on to a wrestling program the first time, you want that person to be able, who's watching for the first time on television, sees like, okay, this guy, I want to pay to see him get his butt beat, or I want to pay to see this guy beat his butt. Simple as that. So it's all about, because in the territory days, like I said, everybody made their money off of the live shows because television was merely only a marketing avenue for the live shows, because that's why the territories use television and, to advertise to everybody in their market, be able to come to a live show, because the gate was where the wrestlers were going to get paid. I mean, wrestlers only got like maybe $50, $100, something like that for television thing on territory, and sometimes they even get paid for it.
Mm.
So, like, I know there's many TVs that I've gotten no money for, but I digress on that. But I was gonna say also certain territories would train like certain talents, for example. Like perfect example of this is Memphis.
Memphis.
Whenever a monster heel would come in, like say Joe LeDuc or Kamala or Hulk Hogan, before he became like the Hulk Hogan we know now, but when he was still wearing the cape and was managed by Freddie Blassie or Jimmy Hart or whoever. I think he was managed by Jimmy Hart in Memphis, could be wrong, but what they would do is that they would run vignettes of this new wrestler coming in, like Kamala, 6'8", 350 pounds from the jungles of Uganda, Kamala, and have him come out of the bushes, or Hulk Hogan, just have him under the light and darkness around him. It's like he is 6'7", 350 pounds. He has 24-inch biceps. He can leg press 1,900 pounds. And it's like, go ahead and get that established to the people all around the territory that are watching the Sunday or Saturday morning TV in Memphis. And it's like, okay, who is this guy? And then have him come out there and beat up somebody on TV, beat up a carpenter. I'm not going to say anything like jobber, but beat up an enhancement talent. And then everybody's like, okay, we got to go pay to see him when he gets his first real match. And he would a lot of times work with Lawler. And Lawler would put them over. And then he'd go through every other babyface in the territory. Then when it came back around to Lawler, Lawler would finally go over on him. It would train the audience for a heel for about maybe 4 months or something like that before it came back to Lawler. It's like, okay, oh my God, Lawler's going to get his butt beat. Oh, he got beat. Okay, come on, these baby faces. And you're also getting these other baby faces trying to get them over at the same time while this is going on. And you're building up this heel. And it's like making it look like they might have a shot to beat him, and he beats them. The heel beats the baby face. Then it finally comes back around to Lawler. It's like, okay, I'm going to get one more shot at this guy. And he would finally beat them. It's like that's how they used to build the monster heel in Memphis.
Now, could you say at one point that, at least in the early days, that a finisher would be training the audience to a degree to show
Oh,
that?
still is, except for everybody's kicking out
Yeah,
each other's finishers.
that's what I'm saying.
Well, I'll go ahead and give you a perfect example. I think the most protected finisher up until maybe 2 years ago in pro wrestling for the modern era was Baron Corbin's End of Days, the swinging flatliner they used to do. Nobody kicked out of that, and they knew it's like, oh, if he got that on even John Cena, he would beat him. And then they put so much equity and so much time into getting that move over to the point where the audience was trained because he beat everybody that he beat with it, and nobody kicked out of it, that this must be the best finisher in wrestling today. And then when somebody does kick out of it, it means more and the pop's even bigger. That's after you built so much equity into a move that the audience is trained. It's like, okay, nobody gets up after this, like Jake Snake's DDT. Perfect example. First time you hit it, the people popped, and it's like, I'm going to go ahead and build my whole working style around this, trying to go for it as often as I can when I see the opportunity. And when I do it to somebody, nobody gets up. You're training your audience that this is the end. If he gets that DDT, it's over. And you go ahead and build upon that. And when somebody finally kicks out of the DDT, like Undertaker did when Jake was on his way out of WWF in their WrestleMania 8 match, it's like, oh my God, he kicked out of the DDT. Perfect example. Train your audience.
Tombstone Piledriver was under similar circumstances too. I mean,
oh, you're doggone right it was.
Until Kane kicked out of it.
Hogan, well, actually, Hogan tried. He took a tombstone from Taker in the middle of the ring and then seized for a second. It's like, I thought he was gonna say, "It's like, oh, you got me, brother, on that one." Then all of a sudden, he just gets up like, "Oh, we got another 6 minutes to kill in this match." So he just pops up without Undertaker pinning him after that tombstone, and then starts laying into him again, makes a comeback until Taker tombstones him. Oh, you got me, brother, you got me. It's like pro wrestling.
Pro wrestling.
Gotta love it. But I digress on that one. But yeah, Undertaker's tombstone for the longest time was protected after that match. And then when Kane actually kicked out of the tombstone, because Hogan technically didn't kick out, he just got up. It took 3 tombstones to beat Kane because you could get away with that because A, you're getting a guy over, and B, he's supposed to be on evil level or maybe even surpassing, as far as power and athleticism concerns, of the Undertaker. So trying to even surpass him as far as the threat goes. So it takes 3 tombstones to beat him, where it takes only 1 to beat the average man. So
Didn't Stan Hansen do the similar thing with his finisher?
I'm glad you mentioned that. Stan, nobody got from the lariat in Japan ever. Ever. He wrestled Kenta Kobashi in, I believe, the Tokyo Dome in 1991. Kenta was still really new on the scene, and they were pushing in All Japan at the time Mitsuharu Misawa as their next big guy because Jumbo was starting to get a little bit older. Jumbo was Giant Baba's, golden boy. He was his ace, and he was his top star, native to Japan outside Hanson Brody for the longest time throughout the 70s and the 80s. And they were like, okay, we need to build up a new star now because Jumbo's getting a little bit older. He's wanting to do things outside of wrestling. I believe he was actually, I don't know whether he was going to go into politics or whatnot. I have to look that back up again. But I know that Jumbo was kind of wanting to wind down his career a little bit. And they were putting all the stock into Misawa. Well, somebody was organically getting over with the people, with the All Japan audience by himself, on his own, just because they either liked his look, they either liked his charisma, his work style, but he started connecting with the people, and that was Kenta Kobashi. And Hansen and him had a match in 1991 in Tokyo Dome. And Hansen's finisher was protected. Protected. Nobody got from Larry, especially because a lot of times it was a shoot. Hansen would be the first one to tell you that. But Hansen's got this mindset, I'm going to make this kid tonight. I'm going over tonight, but I'm going to make him, and I'm going to make it seem like this guy here is, like, he really wants it that bad. So, here's how they do it, because they went like 20 minutes, 25 minutes with this. Referee's checking over Hansen, checking knee pads, elbow pads, whatever. Okay, he comes down, down Kobashi. He's checking him, gets to his knees. Hansen just runs over and lariats him while he's, getting checked before the bell rings. And Hansen's wanting to pin him instantly. Referee refuses to start the match until Kobashi can get on his feet. Takes Kobashi like 4 minutes to get on his feet after that lariat. Then he says, continue. And referee starts, with the bell. Okay, they start brawling all over the floor. Kobashi starts fighting back. It was kind of more of a, instead of like traditional Shine Heat comeback, Hansen was controlling the pace of the match. It was him, but Kobashi would get a flurry in here and there, what we call in pro wrestling, which we'll go ahead and use in another podcast. Basically, he's just doing like a mini Hope Spot comeback combo. It's longer than an average Hope Spot, but it's enough to get some offense on him to make it look like he's starting to turn the tide of the match, make an actual comeback. But Hansen gives him a second lariat 20 minutes into the match on the floor, but you can't count a pinfall out there. And he's got to get Kobashi back in the ring because he don't want to lose by count out. And Kobashi's still working up, still getting up, but hits him with that third lariat when he gets back in the ring. Cover, 1, 2, 3, beats him. Took 3 lariats to beat Kenta Kobashi when it only took 1 to beat the average other wrestler. Kobashi must be superhuman. So That's how you use, like, if you have it, because notice, these are all specific, special instances to where they've used something, or pardon me, gotta love caffeine, uh, that they built so much equity into for years and years and years and years and used it on a special occasion to get something or somebody over. You don't want to go out there and do this all the time because otherwise it doesn't mean anything. That's why I'm not a fan of kicking out of somebody's finisher, especially every night. Rare, very seldom occasions I personally believe in. Otherwise, like I said, it means nothing. But
Right.
I digress on that.
But I mean, it's not just finishers that get these pops or train these crowds because it's like simple moves
Hmm.
can also train the audience, especially when Hogan slammed Andre.
Well, I was going to say, the thing that I think you could even go ahead and say that trained them even more before then was when Hogan was hulking up. It's like
Mm,
we in wrestling call that the Superman comeback because Lawler had his version of it, Hulk had his version of it. But that's basically where the babyface has taken everything but the kitchen sink that the heel's thrown out of him, and he's just gotten so mad and so PO'd that he's just gonna stop. He's gonna block out the pain mentally, and he's so worked up that he's gonna start fighting back whether it hurts or not. That was the whole thing with Hogan's comebacks. Like he usually kicked out of a big move from the heel, or the heel got bumped, like in Andre's case, and he's working up. He's shaking his fists like he's trying to draw that power within. He comes over, slams Andre, they pop even bigger, drops a leg, beats him. But it's like you can train people, even not even as far as a move, just as far as something that you do in the ring to get them up and get what you're doing over without even having to take a bump or even do anything offensively. So, because perfect example of that in more modern context, the people's elbow.
oh yes.
He did that as a rib, and I've heard this throughout the years, as a rib to pop the Undertaker and make him break character. All right. Well, something that I learned when I heard that story is that it might not necessarily work the first time you do it. You got to do it over and over and over and over, and sometimes it might take a couple times going to the same crowd to get that over. But the more you involve the audience in it, the more and more it gets over. When it really started getting over, in my opinion, is when he would actually take the elbow pad and throw it out to the audience because American professional wrestling fans want to be engaged with in the match, in the show, because they want to feel like they're involved and have a hand in things. Well, when you're fighting over an elbow pad that the wrestler throws out of there, you're going to get something out of them. Unless you're that one fan that threw Cena's shirt out back towards the ring, which I thought was hilarious. But actually, truth be told, Cena actually might be they might be begging for Cena's shirt, and he'd probably go and wipe his butt with it and throw it in towards the entrance ramp nowadays. But I digress on that. But The Rock, he did that over and over and over and over again. I mean, yeah, you can make the case that it might be a little bit silly or a little bit too over the top, but the people popped with the people's elbow. And when he threw that elbow pad out there, because when they saw that coming down, it's like, oh, oh, please, I hope I can catch it. I hope I can catch it. Boom. And then hit the ropes both sides. Bam, knocks people's elbow. Perfect example of training it, but it takes equity and time to be able to do that.
Well, you also have Scotty Two Hotties and the Worm when you this is like WORM.
And half the time he would use that just as a way for a heel to cut him off. But there was that rare occasion he would actually hit it on somebody with the full worm. So that, but at the same time, that's when you like train your audience. If you do something and they see it and then you just keep doing it over and over and over again, they get in their heads like, okay, this is how this goes. This is where we are going with this. Let's follow through. But I'll tell you something else. Going back to somebody a little more recent in the industry,
Mhm.
Joe Hendry.
I was gonna save him for later, but let's. He didn't do it with a move. He does it with Well, he does do it with the move a little bit, but I mean,
A little bit.
it's the song.
Well, not only the song, the visuals with it, because pro wrestling fans react to something visually along with audioly. Because, okay, perfect example, outside Joe. Whenever somebody throws a chop, what do they do?
Shh.
No, 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 no. After the chop. Woo!
Woo, yeah.
Well, I tell you what, they've been trained mentally. Oh, that's Flair's move that they're doing. And I even though Gunther has changed it to where it's his kind of his deal now, they still when other matches go, woo! Except Gunther because he's made the chop his own. Well, as far as Joe Hendry goes, his entrance video on YouTube, go and watch it because if you pay attention to it with the clapping, that cuts to a shot of him clapping. That's to tell the audience, please clap. And then keep the clap going while he's going with the London and Paris and Tokyo. That's training your audience to respond to that. And then it feels like they're engaged with the song, making them feel like they're part of the show now. Because it's up to them to go ahead and keep that clap going when, before he goes to the dun, 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 the guitar solo. He did that. It's like, okay, I gotta find a way to engage my audience in my song and get myself over even before I go out to the ring and do anything physical out there. That's one way of getting yourself over. So, kind of like people were trained with the Undertaker's gong. It took it took a little bit for them to understand that gong, but the second they heard that gong, after he turned babyface, that came the biggest pop in the world. But when that gong first happened, they were like, oh, here comes the scary guy. After that equity of him being a heel, then beating their top babyface, and then coming back, then he turns babyface, instantly on top.
Well, isn't it because of the lights go out as well?
Not at first.
No.
Not at first. At first, it was they didn't ever dim the lights for his entrance. Then after a while, it's like, well, let's dim the lights for his entrance, and that gave him another layer to his character to bring the lights back up.
Yeah.
Yep. So I was gonna say it's all about training your audience, but it takes time and equity. And a lot of younger pro wrestlers or newer pro wrestlers in this generation sometimes don't understand that or maybe even don't want to, but I digress on that. It takes time and equity. You're not going to be an overnight sensation.
Well, it's really difficult in the independents in order to build an audience because you're either going to multiple promotions or multiple cities in some cases because they travel all over the place. And you don't, I mean, it's like, yeah, you have some of the tried and true fans that follow you everywhere or follow wrestling everywhere, but you have a different crowd almost every night.
It depends on whether you're wrestling in the same promotion for an extended period of time or if you're just popping in for a shot. If you're popping in for a shot, that's your point exactly. But if you're somebody who's a regular at the promotion, that's your home promotion, it makes that easier to be able to do it. You got to be able to sell yourself that first time with that audience to be able to, like if you're somebody who's just popping in for a shot, to make yourself memorable, to have them want to bring you back in the future. And that kind of makes you, like, even if you're 5'6" and 130 pounds and don't really do anything special like athletically in the ring and all that, you can still have people remember you for your character and engaging with them. It's like, it doesn't, you don't have to be 10 feet tall, you don't have to be 400 pounds, you don't have to be, a super flippy dude, you have to be memorable. Like, you could even just be, somebody who's got, somebody who just pinches their cheeks on there and throughout the whole match pinches his opponent's cheeks. That will make you memorable. I'm just throwing that out there. So, but I digress on that. You have to be memorable.
Now, what's the difference between, I mean, how do I put this? There's being memorable and there's doing it in the negative sense. Like, they remember you for being obnoxious, like
Mhm.
X-Pac heat.
Well, I'll go ahead and tell you this. At that point, I don't want to say anything disparaging about Mr. Waltman, but I think it was more or less the culture of the company was shifting at that time away from the Attitude Era things like the crotch shops, all that. The culture was shifting. It's like, okay, we want a little bit more of an in-ring product now to get people over. People that are wanting to see like more guys like the Hardys and all that, where they were kind of shifting away again from a little bit of the character side and a little bit more to like the in-ring stuff at that period. And they felt like X-Pac, in my opinion, was leaning too much on that character stuff at that time. It's like he already had a bunch of equity built up on there, and he was going to stick with that at that time instead of focusing more on the in-ring stuff, which people like Brock Lesnar and um shoot, who else come in? Orton, Cena, those guys who Cena went back to the character stuff with the rap character, but it was focusing a little bit more towards the in-ring and match quality at that point.
So in that case, the training kind of backfired on him.
In a way, yes, and also because he'd at that point maybe needed something else to freshen his character up, and just didn't capitalize on it. Just my opinion, though, in retrospect. But I was going to say, ever since he's been back, when he's had shots here and there, people have popped for him because they do remember him. Because this goes to another point Eddie Graham figured out. He would never keep Dusty Rhodes in Florida for an extended period of time, or past an extended period of time, because how can I miss you if you won't go away? It's like, take a break. Been very smart. Take a break. Okay, come back, bring something new, fresh again. That's how he was able to keep his character fresh for 30 years. So,
Alrighty, it's time to go home.
here's the pencil.
The pencil. You dropped the pencil, yay.
Yep.
One of these days you're going to remember the pencil.
Yeah, I was going to say, just so long as I don't bend over or pick up, never mind.
Whatever. Alrighty, find us on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube, Working the World 0240.
All right, and don't forget to shoot the half and stay classy.
Shoot the half and stay classy. Point, point.
'Cause I don't wanna fade away for nothing.